Today we are here to wrap up my reading for October. You know, the ghouly season. I'm taking this opportunity to wear my tarot vest one last time because, you know, we're moving on into the season of gratitude, of family, gift giving, end of the year, all that good stuff, which if you guys are a watcher of this channel, you know I love doing end of the year content. So I'm in that place of feeling like there were so many videos I wanted to make this year that I'm not going to get to. So I'm going to try to get them out as much as I can, and then also just acknowledge some of them are not going to happen and we'll have to push to next year. But yeah, for now, let's wrap up my reading for October. By now you should have seen, I've delayed this video going up so that my Nora Roberts vlog could go up. So I'm not going to cover in detail the books that are in that video, but because I read a lot of like kind of category romances, like those are really quick to get through. This is my biggest reading month of the year so far. So I read 25 books. Who is she? It's been like 2 years since I put up those kind of numbers. But yeah, I was on vacation for a week. I had some more reading time. And I've also been really prioritizing some research I'm doing in terms of reading. So, knitting a little less, making fewer videos, etc. So, that kind of means I had a little bit more reading time. So yeah, let's get into it. As per usual, let's start with the advanced reader copies I read. Y'all, I feel so good. I'm already done with my advanced reading for this year. I might go ahead and knock out the only 2 arcs I have left just to see the satisfaction of a 0 arc on my list moment in NetGalley. But yeah, I read 3. So let's start, maybe we'll build to the best one. None of these were bad, though I will say The Works of Vermin by Huron Inez, it did disappoint me because I really, really loved Leech. Something I liked about Leech was that they had this sort of purposeful disorientation to their writing that really worked to build the horror, suspense, mystery of it all. That was sort of like a plague isolation kind of story. The Works of Vermin, like, I don't even know how to describe what it is. I mean, it's about these vermin hunters and this conspiracy. Like, I don't even, it's like it didn't make a lot of sense, I guess, but it tried to explain a lot more than Leech did. So it left me being like, well, this world building doesn't make sense because you've explained too much, and yet I am still disoriented. So this is where, like, people who can do purposeful disorientation well, I really enjoy it, and I feel like that's what Leech was. But The Works of Vermin, I felt like it was, in trying to provide more information, it made it more confusing in a way that did not feel purposeful, I guess. So yeah, I give it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I still like their writing, and they had some interesting ideas, but I don't think it was put together as well. But I'm gonna keep my eye out for their work because they just have weird stuff in their stories in a way that I like and I think is cool. So I'll keep my eyes open, but I would say a little bit of a sophomore slump for me personally. Then I read a cozy mystery romance called And Then There Was One by Martha Waters. I have read and very much enjoyed her historical romance series that she did. I mean, there were some misses. There's also some representation misses in those, but she kept going, and I think that's the right spirit. And she still doesn't shy away from representation of identities that are not her own still, which I think is the right spirit. Like, try to get better, don't give up, keep going. And I really, really liked this book. I thought it was fun. I'm trying to figure out if I would recommend it more to a mystery reader or a romance reader. Okay, so the premise is that this woman is living in this town. She's sort of her family is like the big family of the town. They live in the Hall. She is convinced that there is some kind of serial murdering happening. There have been all of these murders in this little hamlet, and she's been instrumental in helping solve all of them except the most recent one. But their town is getting sort of this like notorious reputation as a murder village, which, based on the portrayal in media, I have to assume the UK has just dozens of. I mean, if Midsummer Murders is anything to go by alone, much less Agatha Christie and that entire literary tradition. Also, there's a beautiful orange kitty, and he has Oh, he's so pretty. Okay, sorry. He's a Tom, I can tell. Probably need to see if I can trap him and get him fixed. Anyway, total see cat, get distracted. That is my life. So yeah, anyway, so she's living in this murder village, and finally she's like, okay, something's going on. We should like just see if this famous detective, just based on the intrigue of this, is willing to come help us. And he isn't, but he sends his assistant. And his assistant is sort of like a foppish ladies man charmer, and she's immediately like, oh no, like I am not feeling this vibe, but they are both feeling the vibe. So he kind of like presents as a himbo, but he actually is smarter than he lets people believe. He brings out kind of a softer side of her, so it's sort of like a Grump Sunshine, and they're trying to figure out what's going on with this mystery. I thought this was really fun, and talking through it, I don't think the mystery was all that complicated, so probably I would say this is more for a romance audience than a mystery audience. But that being said, if you are normally a mystery reader but you like romance, I think this is definitely worth trying. It's cozy without being twee, which you guys know is something I value. And yeah, I think that this could be a good bridging book between genres for romance readers wanting to try more mystery readers wanting to try more romance. I would probably call this more of a romance with a mystery plot than a mystery with a romance element. But yeah, good. 4 stars. I enjoyed this one. And then The Midnight Knock by John Fram. Okay, so this book I gave 4 stars because I can't deny that I could not stop reading this. I thought this was just really good, pulpy horror. I thought this was going to be a mystery, but I would say this is a horror thriller, probably. And I don't know how to like pitch it to you without ruining it, but I also want to like flag some stuff. So I'll say, I think this becomes pretty clear pretty quickly in the book. Okay, so the setup from the back is that there are these people at this motel, somebody's gonna die and they gotta figure out how to survive. It was giving me very Identity from the background, from the back copy. And that is what it's about, but it becomes very apparent very quickly something paranormal is going on. So that's why I would call this more horror than, I would call this horror thriller rather than mystery thriller, or maybe like paranormal thriller. And that, I think that, you know, that's not giving anything away because the comps to this are Blake Crouch, right? So like some speculative or sci-fi kind of elements. And then maybe John Mars was the other comp they had. But anyway, regardless. So that is the setup, is that there are these people who all for various reasons are in flight. And they end up in this motel in the middle of nowhere, Texas, I want to say. Weird stuff starts happening. Mystery and thrills ensue from there. I will say that part of the paranormal element involves Native Americans. I have some questions about how that was portrayed. I would look forward to any Native American reviewers. And I believe am I remembering rightly? I think that they're Apache. That sounds right to me. I'm looking for that while I'll just keep talking. But yeah, it involves paranormal elements that I think in some ways, well, it's making commentary, I guess. I'm not sure I go along with the commentary it's making. I have questions about it. I'm not sure that I feel that comfortable with it. Yeah, it is the Apache. Okay. But if I set that aside, or just say like, it made me a little uncomfortable, but I will allow other reviewers who have more context than I do to give their opinion on that. But if I set that discomfort aside, I just think that this was really, like, the writing is not amazing, but it's like good enough, and it's just very satisfying in terms of just pulpy, and there's some repetition to it based on the kind of plot that it's doing. But for me, as a lover of mystery where you have to retrod clues a lot, that didn't really bother me. So I just was like hooked and in it to win it and just flew through it. So if you're looking for something fun and you can put some questions about the themes on the back burner, I just thought this was really great. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Quality wise, it's probably a 3.5, but because I just really had fun reading it, I'm gonna give it a 4. Okay, so then those are my arcs that I read. I feel like I talked a lot about those. Other things that I don't have in physical form: The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman. I did pick this up as audio. Actually got this as audio from the library now that I'm thinking about it. I'm deeply bitter because it came in while I was on vacation on my road trip, and I was like, perfect, I'll listen to this in the car, but I couldn't get the frickin' rental car's Bluetooth to work with my phone. It just was not sounding good to just listen to it from my phone. Like, I couldn't get fully immersed. So I'm really sad because that would have been an optimal listening experience, but I just listened to it while I was, bebopping around the house. And I thought that this was good. I would say at this point in the series, this particular entry is much more about characters than it is about thrills or mystery, which kind of bumps me out, I'm not gonna lie. I do think that this suffers a little bit from there's just too many characters he's trying to keep up with. While I love those interactions. Like, I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. It made me cry. There was really beautiful moments. There were really funny moments. If you know, you know. You shouldn't start with this. You won't like this if you start with this, actually. You need to be really invested in these characters. So you need to go back to at least the second book. You could probably start with the second book, but just start with the first book. Do it on audio if you are a US. Well, and just in general, I think the audio is good, but the humor in particular, I think, is better conveyed via audio, at least for your first book, so that you kind of get a sense of what the pacing is like and how what the humor is. And then I think you'll kind of get the tone and you could read it physically after that. Anyway, don't start with this because this one just really is very reliant on deep character work, which I love these characters, so that was fine. But I do think that this series probably would benefit from some character culling. Also, I know Richard Osman could do that in a way that absolutely devastated and delighted me at the same time, so that could be a good solution. I think just like refocusing on a really good mystery plot or thriller plot, for my taste, would take this back up into the stratosphere. So, did I have a great time? Yes. Is it not my favorite in the series? Also, yes. And it's less this book, it's more that this book is making me question the future of the series in a way that kind of scares me. Because I'm worried it's just gonna, kind of peter out and become a hollow shell of what it was. So, I enjoyed, this makes it sound like I didn't have a good time in this book. I did. I gave it 4 stars. Lots of beautiful stuff about aging, as these books always have. Thought there was a lot of good stuff about, parent-child relationships in this one. And then also, after what happened in book 4, just seeing kind of where people are at after that. So it was good, but has me a little worried. Okay, the other 2 books I have that are not in physical form, I read these as ebooks. First of all, if you saw, so insert here, I read 12 Nora Roberts books this month. I think I'm up to 56% of the way through her backlog. So I'm making it, guys. I made some good progress. The 2 that I don't, so you can see my thoughts about all of those in that vlog. And these are the ones I have in physical form. Still, I left one of them in the hotel on vacation, but I read the sequel to The Blue Dahlia. This is the In the Garden series. And I will say, so far, this In the Garden series is probably my second favorite version of a paranora that I've read. I think I'm discovering that when she does haunted house paranormal stuff, I'm much more down for that than some of the fae speculative things she does, or some of the sci-fi things she tries to do. Other than the In Death series, I think that's very light sci-fi in a way that works. Yeah, I'm more into this haunted house version of speculativeness. This is probably my second favorite version behind the In Boonesboro trilogy, or is that a trilogy? Yeah, trilogy. And this In the Garden series is actually very close, in my opinion, to In Boonesboro. It's also got a strong family dynamic, a family business dynamic, and there is haunting. I think this one is not as good. I've given both the first 2 books 3.5 stars, and I read Black Rose, which didn't show up in the vlog. This one is the second book in the series, and it's actually, one thing I really liked about it was that it is a woman in her mid to late 40s who has grown children. She's the one getting the romance. She's the owner of this house, and she's having a romance with the historian that she's hired to help them figure out who this ghost is. And he was very beta nerdy, a specific kind of Nora Roberts hero that she does really well and actually kind of innovated. Before her, there was like nary a non-super over-the-top hero to be found. For the most part, she like really popularized having less intense heroes. Yeah, I liked them. I don't know that I totally bought their romance or like the progression of their romance. That's one ding against it. And then the other thing is that these books are set what is clearly coded to have been a plantation, okay, outside of Memphis in Shelby County. As a Tennessean who knows something about that area, this just introduces a lot of unnecessary baggage to the stories, because it would maybe be one thing if they weren't getting into the history of the house, but the whole thing is them researching who this ghost is. So like, you don't think that any of the enslaved people in this essentially a concentration camp that you're now living in and turning into a garden center would be the ones haunting your ass? Like, come on. So that a specter, if you'll pardon the pun there, over the entire series for me that I just keep waiting to get addressed, and it just keeps not being addressed. And it's like the time frames of the Civil War. It's like the history they're looking into is from like the 1840s to the like 1890s. So like, where is any mention of it? Even if it was not good mention of it, I would find that less distracting than the current situation. So maybe that's because I'm local to the area, or because I don't know, but like I find that really distracting in these books. So it keeps me from getting fully immersed in them, because I'm just constantly waiting, like, anything. Come on, Nora. Some mention, some lip service to the fact that this was a plantation, and that maybe that has something to do with why it's able to be haunted, because there's like the torture and suffering of probably hundreds of people that is like keeping this spirit here. Something, and it's just not. And if it was actually, the other thing is, if it had been written earlier, maybe I would also not be as waiting for it. But it's like, people have cell phones, so I don't know. Let me know if you've read this series, if this also bothered you. Maybe that's just a me thing, but I find it keeps me from fully immersing in the story. But I like the characters are great. The next one clearly is going to be this kind of like distant relative who ended up coming and living in the house with them, and she had a baby. She was out of wedlock, so she fled Little Rock, having a romance with the son of the woman who had her romance in this book. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that progresses, because they both seem like they do not understand that they're in love with each other, and so that'll be messy and fun. The other one that I read was Night Shield. That's not in that vlog, and Night Shield is the 5th book of the Night Tales category romantic suspenses that she wrote in the late 80s, early 90s, and then this one is in the early 2000s. And it's actually the best of them, I think. I thought this was really good, and actually made me really sad she doesn't write romantic suspense categories anymore, because I actually think that it solves some of the problems in her standalone romantic suspenses. Sometimes they're just too long and like a little too overindulgent in the setup, and this like really focused in on just the suspense element. It starts as like an undercover sting investigating these burglaries that are happening, where they're targeting wealthy people who go to this like high-end club. It's a romance between the owner of the club and the undercover detective. She has like a relationship. They have like, he knows her father, so they have like shared connection, but they've never really interacted, and now they're meeting as adults. And yeah, and she's the daughter of the couple in the very first book, so that's fun too, to see all the characters again. So anyway, also has some of its time elements that I don't love, but he was not so much of an asshole that I couldn't deal. She held her own with him, which I think works better for these kinds of stories. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and actually I think it's the best of the 5. Okay, I feel like I've been talking a long time, so maybe I need to pick it up a little bit. Where to start? Okay, things I finished for the research that I'm working on right now. I've got a few others that are in progress, but I didn't technically finish them. But to be fair, some of these I had going before this month and just finished. Power and Thrones by Dan Jones. This is an overview of medieval history, and I think if you're looking for like a good, just like high level whistle stop tour, this is really good. I think it gets the job done. Yeah, there you go. I don't feel like I have a ton to say about it. I mean, I have things to say about it, but it's more like research based, so I'm not going to get into that here. So that's a good overview. This, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this. Europe in the High Middle Ages by William Chester Jordan. This I saw recommended a few times as a good overview, and right now I'm kind of like starting broader and then I'll get a little bit more specific, but I really appreciated his style of discussing this period of time. And he is the first historian I have ever seen really help me connect some dots about the continuity between Roman slavery, medieval slavery, and also medieval serfdom. And like kind of thinking about how much continuity there is in that tradition. And then from the serfs, eventually we have like freemen, but then we really kind of get into like peasantry and different, like, I guess this just like really helped me connect some dots in terms of like working people's labor being exploited and the continuity of that in European history. And in different guises. And actually I was like, man, he's the first historian I'm seeing who's like just frankly talking about this. I feel like a lot of times people kind of waffle around. Like, I think we want to, because serfdom isn't exactly slavery, I think that there's a tendency from historians to emphasize how it's not like slavery. And this author did a really good job of emphasizing like, yeah, but they like are fundamentally unfree in some pretty profound ways. And I was like, man, way to go. Because this is from, I think, the early aughts. So that kind of surprised me a little bit that he had that kind of sensitivity. Well, he's an African-American man. So that actually makes a lot of sense that he would have some sensitivity or like awareness of why that needs to be explained. I don't know. This is just a good reminder of like different and new perspectives in different fields like yield different insights. So way to go. So I see why this book is recommended because I think it's short. I would say it's drier than Power and Thrones, but has maybe better depth of information. He's also covering a smaller period, to be fair. But, you know, it's a penguin history of Europe. Like, these penguin history lines usually are pretty good. And this is a really good entry. I really like this. I finally finished Once and Future Sex by Eleanor Janega. This is specifically kind of talking about different kinds of gender-related issues in the Middle Ages. And actually, I love her content. I've seen a lot of her YouTube videos. So I wouldn't say there's a ton of surprises in here because I've seen her talk a lot, but I think she did a really good job of like connecting the why to care about this. And I think this also connects to, so I kind of had two eras of researching like women's history. One is in the Roman era, because when I was in grad school, I did like this big paper comparing early church fathers, like the patristics, their attitudes towards women to what was the contemporary understanding in Rome, and talking about the continuity there and how that bled into Christianity. And then I also did, I TA'd for a historian who did a lot of work on 19th century women's history and like Christian understandings of women's sexuality and women's place in that era. And this just knocked myself in the head. This bridged that really well because the medieval period uses the science, big scare quotes there, that they inherited from the Greek and Romans in terms of how they biologically thought men and women's bodies worked and vis-a-vis their sexual organs. And then they have the understanding from some Christian theology plus some other cultural things that you should read the book to understand. But they basically thought that women are the ones who were out of control with sex. Now, in the Victorian era, we get this specific, like, boys will be boys, men will be men. Men have these, like, overwhelming sexual urges, and women are, like, the flower in the house kind of a thing who, you know, can't be put upon for such gross, base urges. That's not how people before in Europe thought about women's sexuality. Up through, like, the 1700s, really, women were thought to be the ones who just had, like, unquenchable sexual lust and really needed to be married to have that taken care of and locked down, like both on a biological and a moral level. So this really explores that bridge. Okay, I've been talking so long, my camera overheated. I don't know where it cut me off, but basically I was just saying this is like the bridge between Roman and Greek biological understandings of women being inferior, sort of like eugenically, to use modern parlance, what happens in the medieval period, which is what she goes over, and then where we kind of end up in the late 1700s 1800s, which is, you know, the angel in the house, women as the elevated, pedestalized sex who must be protected and kept from men's overwhelming sexual urges. Like there's this kind of, it's exploring that transition in an effective way. So she's got a very conversational writing style, good for popular audiences. I mean, this cover design is banging. Okay, I gotta go quicker because work is gonna start and I've just been yapping too much. Okay, so then maybe let's go to transitioning into seasonally appropriate nonfiction. So I used, this is one of the books on kind of medieval life that I've been wanting to read, which was Queens of the Wild, Pagan Goddesses in Christian Europe, and Investigation by Ronald Hutton. You know, it was October, so I thought this would be both on topic research-wise and then seasonally appropriate. This gets into a lot of the historiography about how historians have viewed the continuity or lack of continuity between pagan tradition and Christianity being adopted in Europe. So it's, if you like historiography talk, this has a lot of it. And then it gets into some specific use cases. It's pretty dry, so I don't know that I would recommend this to people who aren't pretty interested in the topic or just like historiography discussions. But for what it is very interesting. It talks about Mother Nature, the Lady of the Night, the Fairy Queen, and the Green Man, and the Cailleach. I'm so sorry to my Gaelic speaking friends. I know I butchered that, but yeah, it was interesting, but a little dry. I'd give it like 3.5. I've had Toil and Trouble on my shelves for a long time, A Women's History of the Occult by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson. This is told, this is kind of like a coffee table type book. So I'm going to give this a 3-star just because I think for what it is, it does a pretty good job, but like I was left wanting more with pretty much every story. But there were really interesting little tidbits about like the development of actually kind of, you know, actually I just realized these are really good companions. This is sort of talking about the development through the, like, let's say the modern era, like through maybe the Industrial Revolution. And this is sort of like Industrial Revolution to today, you know, folklore practices, folklore stories, folk traditions, folk practices, and how it kind of culminates in a re-emergence in the Victorian period in these practices. Ronald Hutton would say, amidst a society that is now becoming pluralistic and trying to find ways of thinking about their own history that allows for non-Christian belief in a peaceful society. And this is kind of just a lot of vignettes of different women who were a part of that rise in the 19th century. There was one story in particular about this woman who then became the public universal friend. If I had one story I wanted to read more about, it was this one. Look it up. It was very interesting. Okay, so that was a seasonally appropriate nonfiction. On Indigenous Peoples Day, I cracked out The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is really just an essay that's been gussied up into a book, but it's got some lovely illustrations in it throughout, and it's really just mulling on ways of being that would not necessarily, that are not capitalistic, and looking to Native American understandings of economy, how we get what we need as a community, and it was really beautiful and really inspiring. One of the examples she used that really resonated with me that I'd never thought about, but like thinking about the relationship between mother and child as an example, giving without reciprocity, or like one-to-one reciprocity, because like I think most good mothers would say that they get a lot out of being a mother, but there's not, it's, you know, they're literally feeding the child from their body and the child is only taking their resources, but it's still like a gift to the child from the mother, where the mother, again, good healthy mother, doesn't expect anything specifically in return other than this like new community of love between them. So I was like, oh, that's a beautiful and powerful example. And just, she has so many little one-liners in here. If you've read her before, you know. So this was a great little read. And if you're interested in braiding sweetgrass but just want to get a taste of what her writing is like, this would be a good essay to read. Okay, and then, I realized that I had this coffee table book that I'd kind of flipped through but hadn't read. And I actually really, like, the writing is kind of hit or miss. It's like so-so. I think I gave this a 3.5 because I don't know that the writing was all that special, but it is a history of drag. And I think what makes this really worth having are the pictures, not just the gorgeous, like this is I don't know why they picked this as the cover. No shade to Violet, because she has actually a gorgeous photo. Like this, I think would have been a better cover photo for Violet. But they, so they have contemporary drag queens who, are very popular from like the Drag Race franchise and other stuff like that. I'm trying to find this gorgeous picture they have of Kim Chi in here that I was just like, woman, there, look at this. This is what I would have picked as the cover if we were going with a Rue girl. Ugh, look at that mug. But okay, so they have beautiful pictures of contemporary, but what I thought was even more important and really cool was all of the historical pictures that they have, like from earlier drag traditions and like I don't know, I thought that part was really interesting. So the writing I wouldn't say is anything special, but the pictures are really special, and their writing is good enough to like kind of help you understand the context of the pictures. So yeah, I thought this was great. If you're looking for a good a good gift book to someone, I think this would be a great one. Okay, and then let's knock out these last 3, and then my poor camera is telling me it's overheating again, so we gotta do this. I finished up, well, let me say, these are all, 2 of these are good Halloween books. Library at Hellborn, we were supposed to have the live show at the end of October. That is 100% my fault that we didn't for the Blades and Bodice Ripper book club. That was my bad. I wrote down the wrong day and then made plans on the day we were supposed to meet. So I apologize to my co-host. It's all my fault. But we will be having book club about this on the 8th, which actually might be the day this is going up. So if you want to see my thoughts, go check out Leanna's channel, and we will talk about The Library at Hellborn by Cassandra Khaw. This is my first Cassandra Khaw, and I've had an eye on their books a few times, but hadn't actually read any, and I definitely have thoughts. What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher is another banger from T. Kingfisher. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed this series. I know a lot of people didn't like the second book as much as the first, but I'm just in it to win it with our main characters. And this time they're investigating a creepy ass mine in West Virginia. And I just thought this was great. Maybe because I'm Southern and I liked this spooky gothic Southern atmosphere, but I thought this was really good. I think I've given every single one of these books 4 stars. This is a good, consistent novella series, of which Tor.com has so many. They have great novella series. And then finally, a buddy read, or like we didn't buddy read this one in particular, but in support of buddy reading, because I'm now currently reading A Little Hatred, is Sharp Ends by Joe Abercrombie. This is a short story collection of First Law world tales. This was great. I really like him as a short story writer. Some are, in any collection, some are better than others. It's the Glotka one, just seeing young hot Glotka before his torturing days was fun. I don't know that the story itself was that great, but just seeing him was fun. There's a great prequel story for Logan Ninefingers that is very recontextualizing and cool. But the standout of this is pretty much every other story is with these characters named Chev and Jevra. I don't know how to say their names. And it is so fun. It shows like them meeting, and then it shows probably like 15 years of like them being adventurers together, kind of like against Chev's best efforts. They keep working together. It's just, they're so funny. Like there's such LOL moments with them, but also like real poignancy. Yeah, I thought those were definitely the strength of the book and worth reading. This book is worth reading just for that set of stories. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Joe Abercrombie, almost like what I was saying about this series from T. Kingfisher. It's like, I don't think I've ever given him a full 5-star, but I now think of him as a favorite author because I never give his books anything less than 4 stars. They're always good. It's just, yeah, I don't know. He's for me. I really enjoy him. Thank God, because Leanna probably would have to disown me if I hadn't enjoyed him. So, yeah. Anyway, my poor camera needs to rest. I need to get to work. So I'll leave it off there. I forgot how to pace myself when I have so many books to cover. And I didn't even go into detail on all of them. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Let me know what you thought about any of the books. Let me know if there's anything you need to get to before the end of the year, because that's definitely where my mind is at, of like, God, what do I need to get done before we hit 2026? And yeah, if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, hit the bell if you want to know when I'm going to post. Be good to yourself, be good to your neighbors, and I will catch you soon.